Welcome back to the world of kubectl plugins. In this episode, I will share some details on kubectl plugin runtime that might be useful to you if you're a kubectl plugin developer. As I said earlier, the rest of this series is going to be about kubectl plugin development. So let's take a closer look at some of the intricacies of the kubectl plugin runtime. First, let's talk about how kubectl resolves plugin names when a subcommand is invoked. Let's take a look at what happens when a user invokes kubectl with arguments A, B, and C. First, kubectl looks at the first argument, in this case A, and if there is a subcommand built into kubectl named A, that will be executed with arguments B and C. This means you cannot overshadow a kubectl built-in subcommand with a kubectl plugin. And this is good for security purposes. If there is no such built-in command, kubectl will proceed to scan the directories in your path environment variable for executables. Next, it will try to find an executable named kubectl-a-b-c. If such an executable exists, that will be invoked. If not, it will proceed to find an executable named kubectl-a-b. And if that exists, that will be invoked with the argument C. If that doesn't exist, kubectl will try to find an executable named kubectl-a, and if it finds that, that'll be invoked with the arguments B and C. If no such binary is found, then kubectl will actually say command is not found and it will exit. You might be wondering, what if your plugin actually has a dash in its name and you want to preserve that when the users are invoking your plugin? In this case, you need to change the dash in your executable name to an underscore. Let's give an example. Imagine you have a plugin named kubectl xs-matrix. In this case, you need to change your executable name to kubectl-xs_matrix. Before we move on from plugin name resolution, I would like to point out a particular behavior of executables on Windows. As you might know, on POSIX systems like Linux or Mac, any file can be marked as an executable. However, for kubectl plugins to work on Windows, the file name of the plugin must have an executable suffix, such as .exe or .ps1 or .bat. This is because only certain file extensions are recognized as executable on the Win32 API. Now you know how kubectl finds plugins. Next, let's take a look at how plugins are executed. This is also something different between POSIX platforms and Windows. On POSIX platforms such as macOS and Linux, kubectl uses the execv system call to execute the plugin binary. With the system call, the kubectl process itself goes away and it is replaced with the plugin process. In this case, imagine your plugin exists with status code 0 indicating success. The kubectl invocation will also exit with the same status code. On the Windows side, since there is no equivalent of the execv system call in Win32 API, the plugins are executed as a sub-process of kubectl. In this case, kubectl forks and runs your executable and then waits for it to finish and then looks at its status code to determine the status code of the kubectl execution. So to wrap things up, in Linux and Mac, your plugins replace the kubectl process. On Windows, they run as a sub-process of kubectl. However, in both cases, the plugin executable inherits the standard streams, namely standard input, standard output, and standard error from the kubectl. So if the user has set up a redirection of one of these streams, the same file descriptor will come to your plugin executable as well. Similarly, if a user has specified an environment variable while running the kubectl, your plugin will inherit the environment variables of kubectl as well. So if a user has set the kubeconfig environment variable while calling the plugin, then the plugin executable will also get this kubeconfig environment variable and it should make use of it. For now, this is all I have to say about how kubectl discovers and executes plugins. In the next episode, we will write a small bash-based plugin and discuss whether writing kubectl plugins in bash is a good idea or not. Until then, subscribe and stay tuned.